This is a content warning. This episode of the San Joaquin Sound contains language, allusions to abuse, and descriptions of violence and sex. It also talks about a few songs that are sexist and homophobic. Listener discretion is advised. This is the San Joaquin Sound Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Rodriguez. Today I'm here with bassist and guitarist Chris Goodsell, aka Purdy Spackle. He was in bands like Big Jed and the Flatbeds, Cradle of Thorns, Brian Jones Was Murdered, and the Wichitas. He's played shows all over Bakersfield, toured the United States, opened for Willie Nelson, and even played Gilman Street. But before we get into that, what was growing up in Bakersfield like for you?
Growing up in Bakersfield, I'm a first-generation Bakersfieldian. My father was from Long Beach, and my mother was from Alabama. Fond of this place. I don't like the bad reputation. Well, I like the bad reputation because it keeps a lot of assholes from L.A. out, so they don't come and buy up all the houses and raise the rents and all that. So I like our bad reputation. It's hot, it's boring, but the people here are very cool. There's a lot of dumb shits, but at least 10% of the population here are very cool, and you have to hunt them out. And when you do find these people, you appreciate them, and it makes it worth it to live here.
So I was researching for this episode, and I found some articles about someone named Chris Goodsell winning the annual doll competition awards. Is that you? God. Did you win a bunch of awards?
How the hell did you find that? That is unbelievable. How did you find that?
It was in the newspaper.
This is like Nardwar.
It was in the newspaper. It was like
holy
big news.
Shit. You were like
made the
Nardwar.
Newspaper. Well, I've been told that.
I cannot believe that. Oh my God.
So it was you.
Yes. That was me, but all credit goes to my mother. She was she collected dolls, and there used to be a doll fair in Bakersfield in the 70s at the Civic Auditorium, and she would enter, but you could only enter once. So she would enter under my brother's name, my sister's name, and my name.
Nice.
And she would just enter doll displays because she collected antique dolls and stuff. So even though the award says Chris Goodsell won it, it was actually my mother. She just put it under my name because it was like I said, she collected antique dolls from the 1800s, and she'd display them every year at this doll fair. That blows my mind. Wow. Okay.
So that leads to the question, what music did your parents listen to?
Okay, my father was a judge, and my mother was a drill sergeant in the Marines.
Wow.
Now, you would think that I would have some kind of strict upbringing where, I was forced to, mow the lawn at 6 a.m. and all that. But my parents were very hip and very cool. There was always music in the house. They were very much into pop culture. We always had music. They always loved whatever was cool. We grew up listening to the Beatles and Bob Dylan, and whatever was on the radio, my parents were very cool.
Nice.
I should mention that my upbringing was, my parents' style was let them figure it out on their own. So I was pretty much unsupervised my whole youth, which was not a good thing because I needed supervision. I needed guidance, but they just kind of let me run wild. So I was pretty much feral growing up.
So I have another question about your family. So your brother, Greg.
Yes.
He loved punk music, and he even promoted the very first punk show in Bakersfield at BC with Teen Suicide with the lead singer Scott Sturdivant, a.k.a. Slim the Drifter.
Yes.
Did he have a big influence on your music taste?
Yes. My brother, some say he was the first punk in town, but, how can you prove that? I'm sure there might have been other people that claim that. But my brother was like a disco guy in the 70s, like everyone was, with the silk shirts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And listening to disco. But every Saturday night, we would listen to Dr. Demento. Have you ever heard of Dr. Demento?
Yeah, he got Weird Al famous, didn't he?
Yes, same guy. Well, Dr. Demento, we listened to it every Saturday night. He would play just novelty records and weird stuff from all over. And he'd occasionally play the punk record because it was a novelty at the time. So my brother heard Devo for the first time. It was probably 1977 on Dr. Demento, and that just blew his mind. The next day, he cut all his hair off. He threw all his disco shirts away and just went head on into punk. Our bedrooms were right next to each other, and we had super thin walls, and my brother would just play the same records over and over 1,000 times in a row, and I could not help but listen to this music. So he would play Sex Pistols and whatever, Plasmatics and Black Flag constantly over and over and over. And it was just, I would bang on the walls, please stop playing that shit. Because I was very resistant to punk. Because I was into my thing. It did not speak to me at the time. So I just thought it was weirdo shit. I didn't want any part of it. But after a while, it kind of creeps into your brain to where, you start singing the songs like, damn, that's a catchy song. It wasn't until I got into high school to where I started to really identify with punk rock. I completely give credit to my brother. But it wasn't until high school. I was okay, sorry, this is going to be long-winded, but I was 5 foot tall all through high school. I had long, pretty blonde hair. I looked just like a girl. I was very androgynous looking. I was a bully magnet. I was very shy, and I was very eager to please, and so I was a bully magnet. Like, kids didn't like me. They thought I was weird. And so going to South High in the 70s and 80s, I was a absolute loner. I did not have one single friend. And so it was this time when I started identifying with punk rock more. Like I identified with the anger and just the alienation. And it was really starting to speak to me to where I was like, okay, I'm going to make a commitment. I am going to cut my hippie hair off. I'm going to start dressing like a punk. I'm already an outcast. So, I mean, what do I got to lose? What am I going to do? Get beat up more than I'm already getting beat up? I mean, it just no longer mattered. So I just dove headfirst into punk rock. And here we are 50 years later, and I'm still consider myself a punk. And I always will until I die. It's part of me now. I will always be punk. So, I mean, I'm not going to have a mohawk. I wish I could grow a mohawk. I can't. But it's always going to be part of my personality. It's always going to be my DNA.
Awesome. So is it true you got kicked out of South High for acting like Charles Manson? Because you said that. But it never, in the article, it didn't explain what that meant. So what does that mean?
Okay. Around my junior year, other punk rockers started showing up. They were more new wave. I was like the real deal hardcore. But these kids, these new wave kids, started dipping their little toe into the punk rock pool. And I think they recognized me as, I don't know, this is going to sound like I'm trying to make myself sound cool. I'm not cool. I think they just, I started to get a group of friends They were younger than me. I was older. They were all younger than me. They recognized my punkness, and they would come over to my house because I lived right by the Valley Plaza, and my house became a meeting place. I lived in a giant 2-story house. Like I said, I was completely unsupervised, so I just had people coming in day and night, all hours of the day, and my house became the punk rock hangout. And around my senior year, I just stopped going to class. I would just show up, ditch all day, but hang out on campus. Administration wanted to get rid of me. I was like known as a bad person, a bad influence. I mean, I didn't fight, I didn't do drugs, I didn't do anything like that. But they just knew that I was bad news. Yeah, I was accused of having like a Manson-like cult.
That's funny. Not everyone can say that.
Yeah.
How did you get the name Purdy Spackle, and is it related to the National Lampoon magazine at all?
You are fucking awesome. No one would know that. No one would know that. Okay. Purdy Spackle is a punk name. Some people tell me, you can't give yourself... Oh my God, you have the picture.
Yeah, that's Purdy, the page from the
Psycho,
National Lampoon.
Yes, Purdy Lee Psycho Spackle. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. People say, you can't give yourself your own nickname. I did not give myself my own nickname. You have to, if you're in a band, you have to have a fake name. Everybody in Black Flag has a fake name, except for Greg Ginn. And Greg Ginn was constantly getting harassed by the police and the FBI because he used his real name. Henry Rollins' name is Henry Garfield. Chuck Dukowski's name is Gary McDaniel. Rovo's name is Roberto something or other. You have to have a fake name because one day you may do an interview for a magazine and say you want to kill the president. You should not use your real name because that could come and bite you in the ass. So anyway, in junior high, there was a couple of girls that would call me Purdy because I had long eyelashes and I had long hair and I looked like a girl, and they'd say, oh my God, your eyelashes are so purdy. The Purdy Spackle comes from that National Lampoon, Purdy Lee Psycho Spackle. National Lampoon in the 70s did a fake parody yearbook, and the psycho of the school was named Purdy Spackle. And yes, that's... Damn, Nardwar. This is hilarious. I love it.
So when do you start playing music? Is this when you're in junior high or high school?
Okay, I have been performing and playing music since 4th grade. I played violin. I performed concerts since 70, whatever age I was in 4th grade, 76, 77. So I have been performing music. That's not to say that I'm good at it. I am not good at it, but I do not have stage fright because I have been performing music on stage since I was 9 years old. So I played violin and orchestra. I was first chair, first violin. Again, I'm not saying I'm good. I'm just saying I was first chair, first violin. And then later, when I was a teenager and we were all talking about forming bands, I always pictured myself as a singer, but I was too shy to sing. And so somebody had a bass and I picked it up and I was like, oh, I know how to play string instruments because I played violin forever. So that's how I learned how to play bass. My first official punk band was a band called Red Asphalt. And this was probably 1979. And by band, I'm not saying we went and booked shows and made records. I'm saying we played in a garage and we had an audience of maybe 5 people. And that was me on bass, Chantel Waldo on drums. Do you know Chantel Waldo?
I don't.
Okay. And a absolute psychopath that I will call Rod, because that's his real name. I won't give you his last name because I think he is in jail for murder. And he was an absolute psychopath. He was the first person I ever knew to shave his head for punk rock. And this was in the 70s. He played guitar. He played a Vox Phantom guitar through a PVM. And one night we had an argument and he choked me until I passed out.
Damn. Ooh.
Yes. He was an absolute psychopath, but he gets credit for being one of the first guys I knew to shave his head for punk rock, if that counts for anything. First band was Red Asphalt. Second band was a band called Sharon Tate's Baby, and we actually played shows. We played one very legendary show, and that was with Larry Gregg singing, me on guitar, a girl named Kathy Sullivan on bass, and Chantal Waldo on drums. And then after that, I played in a bunch of other crappy bands that didn't really do anything.
So what was the first punk show you ever saw?
Okay, my brother took me to go see the Lizards play at a place called The Falafel, which was downtown on 19th. I don't remember. It was a restaurant. This was 1980. This was my brother's friends. He was kind of like their pseudo manager. He was the one that booked them shows and I should mention that my brother was a DJ at KBCC, where he had a radio show and he played punk rock.
Nice.
Yeah, and I still have a lot of tapes, and one of these days I'm going to put them on YouTube. He used to book shows for them, so he booked him a show at this Middle Eastern restaurant downtown called The Falafel, and I watched him. I was the youngest person there. I was probably 14. I still have their record, the Lizards record. It goes for like $1,000 now on eBay. It's a great, great, great record. Something to be proud of. It wasn't life-changing. It was kind of a boring show, but I got to meet the original first wave Bakersfield punk rockers, and that was very cool. I have tons of respect for them. They were all very cool, and that was my first punk show, the Lizards.
That's awesome. So the falafel restaurant was on 1623 19th Street. Okay. And if you're listening and you want to hear the Lizards, look on YouTube. It's Lizards with ERD.
Yes, they're awesome.
Yeah,
Great band. And these idiots, we tried to reissue their single, and they threw all their master tapes away back in the 80s, along with a box full of their singles that now go for $1,000 each. They threw them all away because they didn't care. Another thing they did that really annoyed me is none of those fuckers took pictures. Nobody thought to bring a camera and just document anything, which really pisses me off.
The biggest advice that I see continue from episode to episode is a lot of people say, take pictures because we didn't take pictures.
Yes. I had a ton of pictures, but over the years, they've been stolen or misplaced, or I really regret not having all the pictures I once had. Man, I would give anything to have my pictures back.
Let's talk about Roller Town.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that was a venue, right?
Yes. Roller skating was super huge in the 70s. I went every single weekend. I either went to Skateland or I went to Roller Town. Every weekend.
Where was Roller Town at?
Roller Town was right by the Valley Plaza. I think it's now More Furniture. You know where the movie theater is?
Yeah.
It's like it was right in that area.
All right.
You'd go and they'd blast disco music and they'd have the disco lights, and you'd go out there and skate around in a circle for an hour. Anyway, did it every single weekend. By 1984, was that the year? That
yeah,
show?
1984.
1984, nobody's roller skating anymore, so all those places are in ruins. So they booked local bands at this. They had a battle of the bands there, and I went, and the place was so sad. It had just fallen on hard times because roller skating was no longer cool, and so they were desperate to make some money, and it was sad to see this place completely run down. This place I spent every single weekend at, and that's where there was a battle of bands, and there was some local bands. I believe it was Silent Holocaust, Deicide, not the death metal band Deicide, obviously.
I think it's Big Jed and Primer Gray were the two bands, and then they had a few bands on the bottom that I'm not sure.
Yeah. The bands on the bottom, here's my memories of them. Silent Holocaust was just a thrown together band that had never played before, and they just had like 5 songs, and they made zero impression. Deicide was some West High kids band. And what I remember most about them is their drummer had a broken arm. So instead of just trying to find somebody else to play drums, they rigged up his drum set to where he played the snare with one foot and the bass drum with the other foot.
Nice.
Yeah, and it sounded horrible. But, you know, you got to hand it to them to not replacing their drummer. Primer Gray were there. And then there was Big Jed, who I'd never heard of. And the evening was wrapping up. My ride was leaving, and Big Jed went on. And I was like, well, let me check out this band. Never heard them. I remember checking them out, and they were unlike anything I'd ever seen, either LA or Bakersfield or anywhere. They kind of sounded like the Minutemen, but not the Minutemen. Like their songs were very weird and like jazzy, kind of funky, but punk. And I remember the singer had a lime green homemade guitar, and he was wearing like a button-up shirt with a string tie. And I guess it was like, what 5 years later they'd call cowpunk, but at the time nobody was doing this. These guys look like they were on their own trip, and I was fascinated by that because we were in Bakersfield. This wasn't an LA band. I would expect an LA band to be all crazy and weird and innovative, but for a local band to be as weird as they were, I was like, whoa, that's really interesting. I thought they were very cool. They made an impression on me. And then later I learned more about the singer, Big Jed, quote, his name was Todd. He was a local guy that everyone respected as a musician because apparently he could play anything. He was like super crazy talented. Legend had it that he had his own recording studio at his house that was like not just like a little shitty 4-track. He like had a 30-track studio, like professional, like heavy duty stuff. I found out later, once I got to know him, that he got in a horrible motorcycle accident. Part of his settlement, he got $30,000. And for 1980s money, $30,000 would have bought you a house. He took the $30,000 and spent it all on recording equipment. And he learned how to use it. And this shit was not like, oh, you just plug in your laptop and do this, blah, blah, blah. No, you had to manually do every single thing. And he learned how to record bands, and he recorded bands, and he was really, really, really good at it. He was crazy talented. I got to know him as the years went on. He was older than me. Everyone was kind of intimidated by him because he was very funny, but he was very sarcastic, like borderline kind of mean. And now that I'm an old man, I realize that's shyness coming off as arrogance. He wasn't really... It was like a defense. Like, oh, if I'm going to be sarcastic and mean first, then they're not going to hurt my feelings by doing it to me. I realize that now because years later, we became best friends. He was bisexual, and he was very open about it. If you knew him, you knew. It was not a secret. He was not in the closet. He was let's say he was a very sexual person. I heard his music, and all the songs he wrote were like super catchy and super good. I was never a big fan of his lyrics because his lyrics were always like super gross and like sexist. And like, I always told him I never liked his lyrics, but he was doing it as a character. Big Jed was a character. Big Jed was a 50-year-old oil-filled redneck worker dude who was an alcoholic and abusive towards women. It was a character. So the songs of Big Jed were written in character. I didn't realize this until years later. Because he was like 24 and he was writing songs about being divorced and having 10 kids, and he didn't have kids. So his lyrics were very off-putting, but his music was so good. And it's a shame that more people don't know about it.
The next year, Burning Image and Big Jed played a show at the American Legion Hall. The Californian reviewed it, Steve Hall from the Californian reviewed it and said that the kids really enjoyed Burning Images concert and they were slam dancing and stuff like this. And they said when Big Jed came on, that the crowd was confused and they couldn't slam dance to their uneven disco-derived sound.
That's awesome.
And I thought that was funny because of all the genres that they're combining, I never thought disco. So yeah. I thought that was weird.
That's awesome.
And then Big Jed actually wrote a response letter to him, and Steve Hall printed it. And it just said this: "Get the heck out of town, you knucklehead." So I like that. That was funny.
God. I don't think about that guy every day. I think about him every couple of hours.
Originally, the band was called Big Jed and the Flatbeds. And what was the lineup?
Okay, it was not me. I was not a flatbed. The lineup was revolving. There was several different people in it. At one time, Steve Crooks played guitar. He was also the guitarist of Primer Gray. He was a member. Paul Hall played bass. And they had several drummers, but the best drummer they had was Paul Birch, who was also a member of Burning Image. He's a awesome drummer and an awesome guy. He was their best drummer. But I'm not discounting who came before him, because I honestly don't know. But that was the Flatbeds. I can say this all now because I know he wouldn't care, and he's dead. And he had some problems. He had childhood trauma, as we all do. He was a sex addict. It was due to trauma that he had as a child. And sometimes people act out and they try to take control of things that they couldn't take control of as a child. So he did a lot of reckless things. He knew it. I knew it. He knew he had a problem. But that's what I loved about him. He was a fucked up dude, but he knew he was fucked up. And I can 100% talk about this without reservation because he was my best friend and I think about him every day and I knew who he was and I miss him and I love him. So if you listen to his lyrics and they're off-putting and gross and weird, just know that he knew that that's the reaction people were going to have. It wasn't shock value. It was exorcising demons. So if you hear a song by Big Jed or the Mutilators and you're like, this guy's fucked up, he knew he was fucked up.
So how did you first join the band?
Okay. Well, Todd and his band were a peripheral character on the scene. We would see each other and we'd talk and, you know, like I said, he was very funny and very sarcastic. And I like that because I am sarcastic also. I always thought he was very funny. I like funny people. I was kicked out of high school. I was hanging around just being a degenerate I was not working. I didn't want to get a job. And that only goes so far. By the time you're like hitting 19, 20 years old, eventually your mother's going to say, you need to get a job or you either need to go to school. I did not want to go to work. So I said, okay, I'll go to BC. I went back to night school and I got my high school diploma. I enrolled in BC. I took a bunch of dumb classes that I didn't care about. And most of the time at BC, I just general ed, but I would just daydream in class. I had no interest in school. I would just daydream about being in a band. I just wanted to play music. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put a pin in that and I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
You are a music fan, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. When you hear a good song or a song you really like, do you get chills? Do you get goosebumps?
I have on a really emotional songs, but there's a lot of songs that I really like that I don't get chills for. It's not a common thing.
Okay, I've asked people this before. I assumed everyone felt like that, but apparently not. Like I asked my kids, and they're like, "No, I don't feel like that." Okay, when I hear a good song, like I get goosebumps and like the hair on my neck stands up. Like, oh my God, this is so good. So I love music. I love it. And so my whole life, I just wanted to be in a band. I didn't want to be a rock star. I just wanted to be a working musician, just touring, playing music, putting out records. I don't care if anyone likes it. My hope was to be in a working band and maybe be like, have a cult level of success. I never, like I said, I did not want to be Bon Jovi. I just wanted to be as cool as, I don't know, Butthole Surfers, whatever. Just a cool cult band.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would just daydream in class about being in a band. And I tried to get something going with friends, and it was not what I was looking for. Paul Birch went to BC, and we would cross paths as we were changing classes, and I'd always stop and chat with him. And because he's really a nice guy. He was in Big Jed at the time, and there was a rumor going around that they were about to get signed to an LA independent label called Triple X, and they were about to go on tour. And I was super jealous because that's all I wanted. And then I heard their bass player left town, so they needed a bass player. And I said, okay, it is now or never. One day I saw Paul, and I stopped him in the hall, and I was like, hey, I heard you guys need a bass player. Your bass player left. And he goes, yeah, we need a bass player. You play? And I was like, yeah. Now, I had seen Big Jed, and I'd seen their former bass player, and he was really good. He plays like, like super intricate, like a lot of fills and stuff. I'm not that style. I am strictly Dee Dee Ramone, just root note, just da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's my style. I'm good at it, but that's all I can play. So I told him, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll give you a tape. And so a couple days later or whatever, he gave me a tape. I took it home and I played it. And the songs were so good, but they were so hard and complicated. And there's so many changes. It was good. They were short, which I liked, but they were super catchy, earworms. But the bass lines were hard. And man, I played that tape over and over and over, trying to learn it exactly as it was on the tape. And it was way out of my comfort zone. And I just practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. When I felt like I was good enough, I told Paul, I said, hey, man, I played your tape. It was really cool. I learned songs, let's jam or whatever. And you guys can see if you like me. And he was like, okay, cool. So he called me and he said, okay, we're going to be taking photos for the record. And they said, meet us downtown. And I was like, okay. So I went downtown, and there was, I think it was Paul's girlfriend at the time. And there was Todd. And this was like the first time I've seen him in like a year or whenever, not casually, like at a party. And she's taking photos of us downtown. And I was like, wait, am I in the band? And their attitude was like, yeah, if you want to be in it. I was like, you haven't heard me play yet. And they're like, who cares? I was like, okay. And so we eventually got around to practicing, and I kept up the best I could with them. It was just me, Todd, and Paul playing. And I don't think I won them over. I didn't even have a bass. By the way, I should mention I had to borrow a bass. I had a guitar, but I did not have a bass, so I had to borrow a bass from a friend. And I didn't have an amp. I had to borrow their amp. Anyway, so I kept up, but I don't think I won them over with my playing. I won them over because we just seemed to click sense of humor wise, and just like immediately, I don't know how it happened, but me and Todd just that day became best friends because we just clicked on a psychic level. Like he knew all the all the TV shows I watched as a kid, he knew them all. The more obscure, the better. All the music I knew, he knew. We just had the same sense of humor. We just completely clicked. And they told me they did not want me in the band because of my playing. They wanted me because of my personality and because I was just cool, I guess. So I was officially in the band.
So I've listened to some of the recordings that I could find of Big Jed. My favorite song by far is Him Before Us. What's that song about?
Well, the first line is, Lynette had the right idea, but the wrong administration. That is about Squeaky Fromme, who was a member of the Manson family who tried to assassinate Gerald Ford in the 70s. Lynette had the right idea, but the wrong administration. I can't remember what the rest of the words were, but it was pretty much about shooting the president.
Ronald Reagan at the time.
Yes, Ronald Reagan. It was about shooting Ronald Reagan.
But it was very veiled and vague. Like, if you listen to it, you might not understand.
Yeah, he doesn't say, let's go kill the president. He's just like saying, we need to get him before he gets us.
So Him Before Us has a really fast, very difficult guitar part. Is that something Todd was playing, or is that a different guitarist that's playing there?
It's all Todd.
Wow.
It's Todd.
That's really difficult to play.
Yes. Yeah. And the weird thing, he was a crazy good guitar player. He could play anything. Like, I saw him pick up a banjo once, and he was like, and I was like, I didn't know you'd play banjo. And he's like, this is the first time I've ever touched a banjo. He's just one of those guys that I can't stand that can just play anything. It just comes natural to him, where I struggle to play music, and for him it just flowed out of him. He could just play anything. Like, he's just one of those kind of guys, just super talented. The weird thing is at the time he had this super ugly Kramer hot pink guitar with a pointy headstock, and that guitar, I messed around with it a few times, and it was absolutely unplayable. Like, it had these super high frets on it. Like, I could barely press down the strings on it, and he still could just get this great sound out of it. I don't know how he did it.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, he's just one of those guys that can just play anything.
And like you said earlier, it's like cowpunk. It's like proto cowpunk. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very country sounding in the way that the lead guitars are played, but it's super fast. It's really aggressive. There's some distortion there, and it doesn't sound like country. It doesn't really sound like punk, but it definitely sounds like something in between.
Yeah, and then in the middle of the song, I don't know if you noticed, there's a little breakdown where he plays Bach, a little classical piece, which is really cool and sounds cool. A lot of his music was very country-ish, rockabilly-ish tinged. And when I talked to him about it, he was like, what are you talking about? So I think a lot of that country influence was maybe subconscious, which is interesting. I met his dad, and his dad was like this greaser dude with a pompadour and sideburns. He was an older guy, very nice guy. And he was like redneck dude. So I think maybe that country influence was just part of his, I hate to say DNA, but it was just part of him. So, of course, his music is going to sound like that. I don't think he was deliberately trying to sound country-ish, but it's, you're from Bakersfield, you're going to sound like country music.
What other songs by Big Jed do you think stick out for you as highlights?
He had this great song that he should have released as a single instead of the single he did, called She's Pissed. That was just super cool and catchy, and I thought it was his best song, but I think he recorded it and he meant to put it out, but he wasn't happy with the recording, so that's why he ended up with the song he did. But I really think if that song would have been released in the 80s, it would have got some airplay and got some attention.
That one had some kind of like hard rock and funk influence in it, right?
Yeah, She's Pissed was did have a kind of a funk feel to it, but it was years and years before white boy slapping the bass funk type crap was in vogue. I just liked it. I thought it was a really super catchy song, and it was a cool song. And it's a shame he didn't put that out.
Was there a fan favorite?
Yes. The song we would open with was my favorite. It was a song he didn't care about, but I love the song so much. I told him, I love this song. Let's let this be the opening song. And it was a song called Big Magnet. And it is a kind of a, I don't know what genre you would call it. I called it kind of rockabilly, but it wasn't really rockabilly. I don't know if it was country, but it was a song called Big Magnet. And it's a slower, depressing song, and it's a weird song to open with, but it's such a great song. It's on that live CD I'm going to let you take home. And
Sure.
It's such a weird song to open a set with. It's not what you expect, but the audience always dug it. And in fact, on this live tape, at the end of the show, Todd on the microphone says, "We ran out of songs," and someone in the audience yells, "Play that first song again." So, I mean, it was a good song.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is it about Bakersfield?
No.
Because that's what they said in the documentary.
No. It's about suicide. It is not about Bakersfield. And the person that said it's about Bakersfield is Nate, and he's full of shit. It's not about Bakersfield. It's about suicide. If you listen to the lyrics, it's about depression and suicide. The Big Magnet is just depression pulling you in. I don't know why Nate said that. He didn't know what he was talking about. I used to tell him how much I love the song Big Magnet, and he was like, I'm thinking about changing the lyrics to Bitch Magnet. I was like, I will kill you if you do that. And he's like, no, we're going to call it Bitch Magnet. And like, I'm a bitch magnet. And I was like, if you do that, I will quit the band. And he was like, no, we're going to do that. He was just messing with me because he knew I hated that kind of stuff.
So Big Jed came out with a record, and it has a really controversial title, right?
Yes. Okay. Before you go on tour, you have to have product. I mean, you can't just show up and say, hey, we're these dumb shits from Bakersfield. Can we play at your club? You have to have evidence that you were an actual band. So the band, not me because I didn't have any money, Todd and Paul pooled their money, recorded a record, all recorded at Todd's house. They mastered it. They printed up, I don't know how many copies of a record. Now, as I said, Todd had hundreds of great, super catchy songs. For whatever reason, he chose to put out the most controversial song he had, which was a song called Die F-Word Die. He said he wrote the song. I don't know if this is true, but this is the story he told everyone. He wrote the song after watching an episode of Geraldo where a gay dude said he was intentionally going around spreading AIDS to people. I don't know if that's true or not. I think maybe he just dreamed up the scenario in his head. But the song is a song in 3 parts. It starts with 2 hillbillies or rednecks or idiots talking over a drum machine, talking about how you get AIDS. The second part is like a Slayer-style metal song about a guy that was infected with AIDS because a gay dude that had AIDS slept with his girlfriend, and the guy contracted AIDS from his girlfriend, and he was going to kill the dude. Then the third part of the song is just like a super offensive refrain, I guess. Why? Okay, I get it. You want to make controversy. You want to shock people. You want to get people's attention. I understand that. But of all things, why did it have to be that? When we would play that song live, as soon as the song ended, I would always grab the mic and go, "He's just kidding." That song caused a lot of problems. We got on the news. The news did a story about us. If you see the video, I'm the only guy not wearing sunglasses. I noticed before the film camera showed up, everyone put on sunglasses really quick. I was the only guy that did not put on sunglasses. I understand why they did it now. So that was not smart of me. I did use a fake name. But yeah, during that interview, I tried to explain we're not homophobic. This is just a dumb song. We don't hate gay people. We've never hated gay people. But people didn't take that way. Can you blame them? I mean, if you really sit down and listen to the record, if you listen to the flip side, there's a song on the flip side called My Town First. And if you listen to that song, it's about Bakersfield. And the lyrics are, everyone in this town is a fucking redneck idiot. I hate it here. I want Russia to drop a bomb on this town because everyone here sucks. So, I mean, if the singer on one side is saying he hates stupid people, he hates ignorance, part of the lyrics of My Town First say, everyone here thinks they're fucking Rambo. Now, if you hear that song, you would assume, okay, he doesn't like ignorance. And then you listen to the flip side where he's saying, die, F word, die. You think, okay, there's a conflict here. Like I said, Big Jed was a character. He was singing in character. I'm not making excuses. I'm really not. It's just, I did not write the song. I did not even perform on that single. That is not me playing on this single, and the motherfuckers put my name on the single. So now that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. I did not play bass on that. You can tell I did not play bass on it because the bass playing is good. I don't play good. But they put my name on the single. Luckily, they didn't put my last name. But, yeah, so Flipside Magazine, a magazine I used to love and respect, they gave us a good review. They got the joke. They said, these are some serious pissed off motherfuckers from Bakersfield, California. And I appreciated that. But every other magazine, Maximum Rock and Roll, said we were assholes who should commit suicide. We tried to book a show in Boston, and the guy said, I would never have you play here. You guys suck. You guys need to listen to David Bowie. And I'm like, dude, I have more David Bowie records than you have. So, yeah, that's just one of the many things that haunt me. It was May, and they were like, okay, well, we're going on tour in June. Triple X has set up a tour for us, and we're going to go all over the country. And I was like, yes. Because, like I said, I didn't have a job. I didn't have money. I had no future. I was going to school only to kill time. I didn't care about school. All I wanted to do was just get in that van and just travel the country and play music and just, be a working musician. And my dream came true. And a friend of mine said, you are the only guy that can sit in his room and dream about being a rock star. And it happened. Not that I became a rock star. That wasn't my goal, but you know what I mean.
So the nationwide tour was Bakersfield to Phoenix to the East Coast. Is that right?
How do you know this? Where did you find that?
It's in the Bakersfield, California. They did a story. You guys did interviews after this tour and told all about your experience.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Yes, our first show after leaving Bakersfield was Phoenix. That show, they refused to pay us. And we were like, oh shit. Well, we planned to use the money that they were going to pay us, $100 or whatever, to use for gas to the next show. We're going to have to turn around and go home. And all of us collectively said, no, we cannot go home in defeat, because the paper was, the guy who wrote the local music section in the paper was like, hey, good luck to Big Jed on their big tour. We wish them the best and blah, blah, blah. So we could not go home after one show. No way. So we pooled what little money we had. I think I had $40. And the guys put in their money and said, fuck it, we're going to do it whether we make money or not. So we continued on. And next show, I don't remember. I don't have it. But I know we played Oklahoma City and we hung out with the Flaming Lips, who were nobodies, but we hung out with them and they were very cool. And I wish I would have took photos, but we hung out with the Flaming Lips. I can't remember all the cities we played. We had great shows. We had shows where nobody came. I think Pittsburgh, nobody came to our show. We played Chicago, which was a blast. We played a huge show there. And the best part of the tour was we had shows canceled. The guy that booked our tour was a guy from Triple X Records, and he was an idiot. He didn't know what he was doing. And a lot of our shows got canceled, so we had a layover in New Jersey. So we were stuck there for a week. And we were pretty much homeless, just living on the street, eating out of dumpsters because none of us had money. And that was probably the best time we had. We have a live recording of our New Jersey show in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the Court Tavern. I have it. It's off the soundboard and it sounds awesome. And if I can find it, I'll let you borrow it or use it or whatever. We played mostly college towns, Madison, Wisconsin. We played, I don't remember. Anyway, we had zero money. Like I said, we were pretty much just sleeping on the streets in parks. We did not eat. We made zero money. We made lots of friends and had the best time of our lives. Our last show, we circled the states. I don't know how many shows we played, 10, 12, I don't know. Circled the states. Last show was San Francisco. By then, the van was covered in graffiti. We just spray painted it, so we were constantly getting pulled over because, I mean, of course we would. Anyway, so the last show was San Francisco at the Covered Wagon. News of our single had gotten out, and this was the height of the AIDS epidemic. There was a group in San Francisco called ACT UP. I don't know what it stood for. They decided to show up at this show and cause a riot. And they did. And what was cool is they were chucking bottles at us and they were starting fights in the parking lot. And they said they were going to kill us. And we played our first song and they all froze and stopped. And I knew it, that they were like, oh shit, these guys sound good. Because on that tour, we really got our chops. I mean, we started nailing the songs where we were really tight and we were like a good rock and roll unit. And we played our first song and they all froze and they stopped throwing shit because they're like, oh man, these guys are good. That sucks. I wanted to hate them. So we played our whole set and I think we won them over. Then the article in The Advocate came out, the gay magazine. He did an article about us where he said, oh, I didn't mention the thing that happened. I forgot the most important thing of the San Francisco show.
Yes.
Okay. I forgot about that. How could I forget? Okay. Todd grabbed the mic and said, you guys think we're homophobic? And they're like, fuck you. Blah, we hate you. And he's like, I can prove I'm not homophobic. One of you guys come up here and I will S your D here on the stage. Come on up, pussies. Come on. I dare you. I dare you. Nobody did shit. They were like, oh, okay. He's like, come on, I'm not going to play another song till somebody comes up here and I will S your D on stage, right? And finally a guy came up, and that's exactly what happened. And after it was over, Todd said, what do you got to say now? They couldn't say shit. So they watched the rest of our show, and we won them over. Of course, there's better ways to win over an audience than doing that. But that was to prove a point that it's just a song. We don't want to hurt anybody. So anyway, after that night, we went home victorious.
So this article in The Advocate, and if you know what The Advocate is, it's a queer magazine that was really important and dealt with a lot of queer issues. And the title of the article is called Big Jed Sucks. The author, named Adam Block, he says, on hearing the title, I dismissed Die Efsler Die as a stupid, desperate attempt for attention by some bargain basement bigots. It seemed best to ignore it. Clearly, he went to the show. He was going to give a bad review. He just wanted to document it. But by the end of the show, he said, I could no longer just write off Big Jed as rubes and rednecks, so I took a closer look at the single and interviewed its author. And he talks about the three parts of the song, like you said, and he says that it's basically that it's satire, and he goes on to conclude that Big Jed is expecting too much of the audience to understand that this song would be satirical. He also said that Big Jed's music surprised and pleased him, but he doesn't let the band off for this homophobic song. He states that Todd is naive and boneheaded. He states that Todd does have an ear for satire, celebration, and twisted wit. But on this song, he is derailed by his stubborn identification with a couple of idiotic ideas, and he doesn't seem to be ready to give these up. Musically, he states that Big Jed is the mutant offspring of Buck Owens and Big Black. And at the end, they do hype up a record called No Fucking Regrets, which was going to be the LP name, according to this. Yeah. But that's what Adam Block said in The Advocate.
If I could hunt down all those master tapes, I would finally put out that record. I mean, I have cassette versions. I suppose I could have someone clean them up and put out the record finally. One thing I should mention is Todd very generously, I told him, okay, here's a story from the tour I did not tell. Believe this or not. Okay, so we toured a bunch of places. When we came back home, and I was living in San Francisco, and I was listening to Live 105, the radio station, at my work, there was a song by a brand new band called the Goo Goo Dolls. And the song is called, I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it sounded exactly like a Big Jed song. Like the chords, the melody, everything. And it was enough to make me think, were these motherfuckers at one of our shows and they stole one of the songs? So I told Todd, I said, Todd, you have to copyright your songs. I mean, you need to make a copyright because someone could rip off your songs and you are powerless. There's nothing you can do about it. So I was the one that did everything because he was too lazy to do anything. So we took all of his songs, put them on cassettes. I listed every single song. You have to put the title of the song and who performed it. And there was literally 50 songs. And he said, put your name on it as co-songwriter. And I was like, I didn't write any of this. And he's like, I don't care. I trust you. Just put your name on it. So we copyrighted all his songs as Thompson Goodsell. I will tell you right now, and I'm telling whoever listens to this, I did not write those songs. I did not write those songs, but they are in my motherfucking name because he's dead. So I own those songs. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm not planning to make any money off of them, but I'm just saying those songs, he generously told me to put my name on them. So one of these days, I am going to put out a record as soon as I can. I need help, obviously. As soon as I can gather up the tapes and everything and just whatever money it takes, I will put that out on record to fulfill that article, what he said in that article. But I just need help. If you're out there, please help me. I don't know how to convert cassette tapes that are literally 45 years old to transfer this to some kind of vinyl. So if you can help me, reach out, please. I mean, if anybody cares, that is. By the way, I did not write the songs, but there are a few that I was the muse for. Like, I would tell him something funny, and then a couple of days later, he said he would show up with a song that he wrote about something I told him about. But that's as far as my songwriting went. I did not compose melodies or anything like that.
Well, we talked about one kind of audience participation that happened in San Francisco, and we've talked about with Mark, when he was on the podcast, he told a story about Todd where they were at the fairgrounds and the cops were arresting him, and he was still saying funny things into the mic while the cops were asking him questions in front of everyone. So what are some other interesting crowd or stage antics was he getting up to?
Not necessarily with Big Jed, but with our other band, the Mutilators, there was a lot of crazy shows. Like, if I told you, it would sound like I'm just making up stuff. And
try me.
We played this club Mars.
That's what Bam Bam's was called later,
yes,
right?
Yeah. I think after Bam Bam's, it changed its name to Mars. It was ran by John Bentley, the promoter guy. Our drummer, Daniel Arias, his father was a musician. He was in some bands in the 60s.
Cool.
And yeah, Daniel played his drum set, which was a beautiful vintage red Sparkle Ludwig from the early 60s. It was an awesome little jazz bebop kind of kit that he obviously took a lot of pride in because it was his dad's. And I just remember for no reason at all during a set at Mars, Todd just decided in the middle of a song to pee all over the drums. And that really made Daniel mad, and he quit the band that night, and we begged him to stay. And he was like, no, you peed all over my dad's drums. And he quit for about 24 hours before we talked him back into the band, so he stayed.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just the charm Todd had. He could talk someone back into the band after peeing on their drums. That was one thing that happened. There was a million things. That's the only one that pops into my head right now. After our tour, we had a band meeting. Okay, Triple X wants to put out our record. They want to record us and put out our record. We need to relocate. We can't stay in Bakersfield. Where do you guys want to move? I said, I want to move to L.A. I want to move to L.A. where all my punk rock heroes are from. I want to rent a house in Hollywood. I want us to live like the Monkees. I want to have adventures every day. And we'll just have a band house where we rehearse, and we'll just play gigs in L.A., and we'll live like Charles Bukowski. We'll just, get drunk and rock and roll. They said, no, we're going to San Francisco. I was like, no, I hate San Francisco. San Francisco sucks. Because it does. The whole city smells like piss. I hate San Francisco. It's nothing but trendy, shallow, stupid people. I don't care. That city can eat shit. I do not like San Francisco. Ironically, I have a painting on the wall of San Francisco.
Yeah, I was like, I'm staring at this painting of San Francisco right now.
Yeah. I don't care for San Francisco. The music scene there sucks. Jefferson Airplane. Oh, wow, great. Primus, Four Non-Blondes. Give me a break. I want to go where the action is. L.A. I got outvoted. What am I going to do? I don't have any money. I'm just the bass player. So there was a rehearsal studio in San Francisco that said, Todd, if you set up a recording studio where you record bands, you guys can crash here. So we're like, okay, deal. So we moved to San Francisco, the whole band. We move into this recording studio called C. Linen Studios. It's in the Mission District, which is the worst part of San Francisco. The whole city sucks. But the Mission District is like, have you ever seen the movie Taxi Driver?
Yeah.
Okay, it's like Taxi Driver. It's just like filth and like people dying on the streets and garbage everywhere and crime and just roving gangs of monsters. We lived there. We were squatting in a studio, right? And it sucked. We were living off a packet of Top Ramen a day and sleeping on the floor of this rehearsal studio that smelled like piss and cigarettes and stale beer. But, you know, it was just the sacrifices we were willing to do to be a band.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're living there. We're trying to book shows. No one's going to book us because of our reputation. So we play a few shows under fake names. And at that point, we're like, we're not going to build a following if we're playing shows with fake names because nobody's paying us anyway. We're not making any money. We're just playing shows under fake names. We're not going to build a following this way. This is stupid. So the band just kind of disintegrated, fell apart. Todd moved back to Bakersfield. We got kicked out of the studio. So now I'm homeless.
Damn.
Do you know the band RKL?
Yeah, Rich Kids on LSD.
Yes. Luckily, we knew those guys. And they let me squat with them. They had a house that they were squatting in. They called it the White Trash Hotel. And God bless those guys. They let me squat with them. So I was living in a squat in, it was like the Lower Haight area. I don't remember exactly where it was. I should know, but I don't remember. But Bomber, the drummer, who was an actual rich kid, I got to show you something. Put a pin in this.
Sure.
I thought the name Rich Kids on L, I thought that was an ironic name. No, they were actual rich kids. They were all...
Josh Brolin talks about how he was hanging out with them too.
No shit.
He was in that band. He says he was in the band, but he wasn't really. He was like in it-ish.
Wow. I didn't know that.
He's been given I saw an interview about it. But yeah, they're actual rich kids. And they were on LSD. It's true.
Yeah. Well, Bomber, the drummer, I think that was his real name because I saw a letter from his mom to him and she wrote Bomber. So I don't know if that was his real name. It was spelled Bommer. It wasn't spelled like dropping bombs. It was spelled Bomber. He took me to his mom's house in Marin and this poster was on the wall. I was like, oh, wow, I remember that poster from the 80s. And he goes, yeah, that's me. No, I was like, oh, shit, really?
So if you want to see this poster, Google the poster that says expose your kids to wildlife.
Yes. Bomber is the guy with the shaved head and the leather jacket. And he told me the story behind this poster. I got to tell you, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
This is when he was in Santa Barbara and on State Street. That's where all the punks hang out. This was the early 80s. And a photographer came up to him and his friends and were like, hey, you guys want to make $20? And they were like, yeah, sure, what? And they said, come to this tomorrow. Meet me at this photography studio and I'll give you $20. Take your picture. And they're like, okay. So the next day they go and he shows up. He had been up all night and he was wearing like filthy clothes that were really dirty. like a white t-shirt that was stained and had like vomit on it and dirt. And he shows up and they're like, you don't look like a punk. You look like a mental patient. And you're like, oh, this is how I look. So they had to borrow a jacket and a t-shirt for him to wear. And they took that photo, paid him $20. And then years later, he sees it hanging up in the mall. I just thought that was a hilarious story because he was...
So that's Bomber, you said?
That is Bomber.
Wow.
These are some Santa Barbara punk scenesters. Anyway, he was a great guy. He saved my life. He let me squat with him. He fed me. He got me off the street. I got to stay at the RKL house for, I don't know how long it was, a few weeks. Eventually, I got a job, and my ex-girlfriend had moved to San Francisco, and I was able to rent a place with her. So I got off the street. I got a job. I played around in a couple of San Francisco bands, but I still stayed in contact with Todd. We still called each other and wrote each other letters and stuff. I cannot stress how bad San Francisco is. The music scene there was shit. The clubs are shit. The people are shit. They can all eat shit.
You didn't even like playing Gilman Street? Didn't you play Gilman Street?
Fuck Gilman Street.
Man.
Fuck all those places. Fuck all those fake punks. Like I said, the big band when I was there was 4 Non-Blondes. Oh my God, give me a fucking break. They had one song and it sucks. Anyway, so I kept in contact with Todd, and he was telling me, man, the Bakersfield music scene is thriving. There's a million clubs. There's a million bands. So I would take the Amtrak train. I would come and hang out, and I'd go see bands with him. And there was great bands. There was this band called Skunk, who later became Crawdaddy, who were awesome. And there was this country band that was called the Wichitas that were awesome. They were like... they were more punk than country, but they were great. There was just tons of bands. Like, everybody was in a band, and there was a million places to play. So I said, okay, I'm not doing anything in San Francisco. I hate San Francisco. I'm going to move back. Me and Todd, we're forming a new band. And so I moved back, and we formed the Mutilators. It was a 50s style punk band. Because there was an LA punk band called The Gears, and I love them, and they were 50s punk. They kind of looked rockabilly, but they played punk style 50s music, and that's what I wanted to emulate, and that's what we were. We recruited this guy named Daniel Arias, who was an awesome drummer, and we got a guy named Scott Graham, who was in a heavy metal band called Chaotic Evil. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Okay. He played
I don't
guitar.
know much about him, though.
Okay. He joined the band.
So we should talk about how there's 2 Mutilators, and the Mutilators you were in is one that there's not really any recordings of that you could find online. If you find one, it's probably the new Mutilators that was more rockabilly, right?
Yeah, I think the new Mutilators he started out of spite, because that was my band. I came up with the name. I came up with the concept. The only thing I didn't do was write any of the songs, but the whole thing was my concept. The name The Mutilators I got because there was a group in New York. It was a group called Mutilators Anonymous, and it was a group of people that could not help cutting themselves, and it was like a self-help group, like, Alcoholics Anonymous. It was called Mutilators Anonymous.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, that's a great band name. So, yeah, he moved to San Francisco. He embraced the rockabilly, psychobilly style, which I can't stand, to be honest. I hate music genres. This is going to sound stupid, but I hate music genres where you have to wear a certain uniform. Like, you have to have a pompadour, you have to have a leather jacket, you have to have a certain style of shoes, you have to have a certain style of pants, you have to drive an old vintage car, you have to blah, 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 you have to play a Gretsch. I just can't stand that. Our Mutilators was punk and 50s, and it was just the mishmash of styles. There was country, there was rockabilly, there was, and I would have... There's no way I'm going to be playing a stand-up bass with flames on it. No, that stuff's stupid. I I don't care for that. I mean, the original guys that did in the 50s are awesome, but these fake Happy Days wannabe Stray Cat, whatever the fuck you call them, those guys suck. They're lame. They're stupid. I would have never been a part of that. Now you're going to say, but isn't punk rock uniform? No, absolutely it is not.
Yeah.
With the punk rock that I am is you just wear clothes from the thrift store. You don't wear Doc Martens that cost $120 or whatever. No, you just buy clothes from the thrift store. Hardcore, American hardcore.
So you had a practice space and you shared it with Spike 1000 and the King Bees. Is that true?
I don't know who the King Bees are, but yes, Spike 1000, yes. How did you find that? Seriously.
This one was in the newspaper as well, just on a random article.
Oh, okay.
That mentioned an article about the King Bees, and it said shared a practice space with Spike 1000 and the Mutilators.
Oh, yeah. I got a bunch of Mutilators clippings I'll show you if you're interested.
Yeah.
We did get a few reviews. Mutilators was a super chaotic band because of Todd, because he liked to make a spectacle. In ways, it was entertaining. In other ways, it was very exhausting. Like, you could not just go like, hey, let's go to Burger King and get some, food. It always turned into, we're getting chased out and people are trying to kill us, because he was just a very chaotic person. So a lot of the Mutilator shows turned into events. Let's say there was one night we played a club on California Avenue called John Bryant's, where we got beat up on stage. The bouncers came up on stage and beat us up.
What?
Yeah. Yes.
Why though?
Because Todd decided to pick a fight with the audience, and it got out of hand, and the bouncers came up and started beating him up. And I don't know how to fight, but I know how to pull people off of other people. So I went over there and I was trying to pull the bouncers off of him that were beating him up, and they started beating me up. So the drummer came over, who could actually fight. He's since passed away. God bless him. Daniel Arias came over and started punching bouncers, and then audience members joined in, and it just turned into a gigantic nightmare. But
wow.
That was, I would say the original Mutilators played probably about 20 shows. Every single show, something happened where it was like, oh my God, I can't believe we did not get killed. The very last show we played, we broke up on stage. It was at Jerry's, which was just starting to have bands play there. Me and Todd had a disagreement over something on stage, and I, as a founding member, took it upon myself to break up the band on stage. I grabbed the mic and I yelled, "You've seen us for the last time," and I smashed the mic, and we broke up the band. Todd threw a hissy fit, and in a week he moved to San Francisco, leaving me in Bakersfield. And that same night I joined Cradle of Thorns.
That would have been 1994-ish?
1993. So the night the Mutilators broke up on stage, that night I was drunk. I went out into the alley by Jerry's Pizza. Some friends that I was with saw the Cradle of Thorn guys, tried to start a fight with them, did not realize that the guys in Cradle of Thorns knew how to fight, immediately pussed out. And I went up and I said, "Hey, my band just broke up. Let me join your band." And they just kind of laughed. And then a week later they called me and they said, "Hey, were you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they said, "Well, our bass player is addicted to heroin and we're looking for a new guy." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, sure, let's do it." So I joined Cradle of Thorns. So I was an unemployed bass player for about a week.
In Cradle of Thorns, they're already on Triple X, right? And that's the same label as Jane's Addiction and LAPD, which became Korn, Dr. Dre, Social Distortion. All these people have been on Triple X. So it's already successful. And so how does that go for you?
Okay, this is where I'm going to step on some toes.
That's okay.
Okay. The Cradle of Thorns, I joined. Okay, when the Mutilators were playing, the big hot shit band in town was Cradle of Thorns because they were super popular and they just got signed to an indie label and they were hot shit. And they played shows and they just pack them out. Right?
Yeah, we should say it's Ty Elam on vocals.
Yes.
David File on guitar. Chris Coles on drums.
Yes.
Who later was in Edema.
Yes.
And Rohan on the keyboards.
And Tamara Slayton was the co-vocalist, the female vocalist.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And then who was on bass before you?
There was a guy named Jay who was the original member. Very nice guy. He quit. I don't know the reason why. And then they recruited that guy, Scat, from LA. He was an LA dude. I was the third bass player of Cradle of Thorns. Okay, so Cradle of Thorns were the hot shit band when the Mutilators were playing. I knew of them when they first started. They started in like 86 or 87, and they were a way different band. They were like acoustic guitar, kind of REM style, gothy kind of, I don't know what style you call it. I used to call it college rock. They continued playing, and their sound evolved to get harder and harder and harder. And I saw them play in Santa Clarita at a club called One Step Beyond, and I was really impressed because they were like Nine Inch Nails with a little bit of Bauhaus, and I thought they were awesome. I was really impressed. But that's when I was still living in San Francisco. I thought they were great. Then I moved back to Bakersfield, and of course, I'm in a rival band, and they're the hot shit band, so of course, we hated them. Not because they were a shitty band or they were bad people, it's just because we were jealous, and they were getting all the attention. So we were kind of like, fuck those guys, when we'd see them or whatever. It was pure jealousy. They never did anything to us. Anyway, so I joined the band. They were all very cool. I was under the impression we were still going to be the Bauhaus meets Nine Inch Nails style band, which I was totally into, which I think is cool. But it seems Ty started really getting into hip hop. He was like, that was the direction he wanted to go. And so once I joined the band started evolving into this metally rap kind of band. It was time to record an album, Triple X. Other labels had interest in us. Like they'd come see us and they'd be like, hey man, we dig your stuff. And Triple X was like, you have to be bought out of your contract, because they had a contract.
Yeah. And
the label was like, no thanks, not interested. They gave us $5,000 to record a new album. Triple X did. $5,000 for 1995 or whatever. That's the equivalent of $20,000, I guess, or whatever. So they wanted us. They had a producer picked out for us. His name's Bruce Stuff. He was in 45 Grave. He's really cool. He wanted to produce us, but we said, no, we're going to produce it ourselves. We took the $5,000, took $4,000 of it, and bought a van with it, and spent $1,000 recording the album, producing it ourselves, which was a mistake. Because a good producer would say, okay, this song's okay, just shorten this part, make this part longer. This song sucks, don't record this one. This song's good, but you need to make it slower, faster, this, that. That's what a producer would do. Since we're producing it ourselves, everything's great. And so we recorded it all for $1,000 at Pig Studios, and I haven't listened to it since it was recorded. The last time I heard it was when we played it back after recording it, and that was the last time I heard it. There's nuggets of good stuff on it that could have been really good, but mold it, shape it. But we didn't. What are you going to do?
So, did they still have crazy live shows at that time?
Before I joined the band, I guess they were very theatrical, where Ty would bring out props for every single song. When I saw them in San Clarita, he did have props and stuff. I thought it was funny. I thought it was cool. Like we were banned from, well, before I was in the band, they were banned from Whiskey A Go-Go because he he went to a bait shop and brought a bunch of crickets and let them loose in the audience, and they had crickets in the Whiskey A Go-Go for months, so they were banned. But they lifted the band, and we got to play the whiskey. So I was very excited to play the Whiskey A Go-Go with them. I'm grateful for my time in Cradle of Thorns because I got to play a lot of huge shows. I got to tour the country 5 times or more, and I met cool people, and it was fun. So I'm very grateful for my 2.5 years that I spent in Cradle of Thorns.
And then how did that end? They made Videodrome, right? And you left?
I left the band, and because it was time for me to go. I was 5 years older than everybody in the band, so I was the guy in the band that was like, you guys, come on, grow up. You know what I mean? They were still into partying, and I was over that shit. I was the guy that after every show just wanted to go straight to the hotel so I could go to sleep. But they wanted to party, and whatever. They were younger. I quit. I was pushing 30. I was like 29 or something, and it was time for me to go. After I quit, they all moved to Huntington Beach, and they got signed to Elementary Records, a subsidiary. Is that the word? Subsidiary of Reprise Records. And I guess the label told them to change their name because there was another band called Cradle of Filth. So they changed their name. The label made them... They decided to give the band an image, so they made the guys in the band wear red jumpsuits and gave them all funny haircuts. And I never heard the record. I think they got played on Total Request Live on MTV once, but I never heard the record, so I can't tell you if it's good or it's bad. But I think they broke up after that album. I mean, I don't talk to those guys. I don't know what happened to them. You would have to ask Ty or one of those guys what happened.
All right. So after you leave, it's 1997. Talk to me about Spackletone Records.
Okay. Spackletone Records. It's so easy to have a record label. All you have to do is tell your friends, I want to start a record label. And then they just go ahead and they put your name on the record label. That's all there is to it.
Easy does it. Nice.
Easy does it. I did absolutely nothing. I just told some friends, hey, I want to start a record label and call it Spackletone. And they were like, oh, that's great. And so they just put that name on their records. There's a Wichitas record. There's a Brian Jones Was Murdered record. And there's another band, I think, called the Noble Losers, maybe, that has Spackletone Records. I'm only the namesake. That's it.
But you played on that Brian Jones Was Murdered record, right?
Yes. Me and a guy named Kenny Mount. I'm on bass, Kenny Mount on drums, and Charles McNeil on guitar and vocals. We did not practice. He just said, will you guys be on this record? We showed up and recorded it without practicing the songs. We just went straight into it, and you can tell if you listen to the record. Like my bass lines, I am just playing the root note because I did not know the songs. I haven't heard it.
What is Slumlord Studios that's on the back of that record? Do you know?
Oh, there's a guy, I don't know if he's still around. His name is Pipkin, Scott Pipkin. He owned a building on Chester Avenue. He swore that he was going to turn it into a nightclub and have bands play. It never opened, but he still owned the building, and he let bands practice there. And I don't know if he called it Slumlord Studios or we called it Slumlord Studios, but that was Scott Pipkin's building on Chester Avenue. And yeah, it was just a place where bands played, and I'm sure we just had a 4-track recorder in there and just did like that.
Another band you were playing in was the Darvasets, right?
Yes.
Tell me about them.
There's not much to tell. I quit Cradle of Thorns. I decided I needed to be in a band where I wrote the songs and sang and played guitar because I like playing guitar more than bass. There is a guy named Joey Witt who owned a clothing store downtown named Outer Limits. And we went to junior high together, and he was one of the 3 people that went to my junior high that was not mean to me. And so I'd always go in there and we'd talk and hang out, and he's very cool, and he was into punk rock, and I convinced him to play in my band. We practiced at his store, Outer Limits. We originally were called a Garbage Man, and then we played Jerry's a bunch of times, and then we played as the Darvasets. We had a drummer named Jason who was a very super talented guy. We got to know Nate Berg, and every time, since we were old punks, every time an old punk band came into town, he would always call me and ask us to open. And our gimmick was, besides never asking Nate for any money, he never paid us, but our gimmick was, this is a trick I learned from a band in San Francisco called the Dwarves. Our gimmick was we would play for 15 minutes and then get off the stage, thus taking all the energy with us out of the room. Like when we'd open for a band, they'd expect the opening band, the headlining band would expect us to play, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or whatever. So they would just be relaxing, doing whatever. We'd go on, we would play 5 songs and then fuck you, good night. And then we'd leave. And they're like, oh, shit, they're done? And so they would scramble to try to get their shit together to get back, to get on stage to play. But we have sucked the energy out of the room because now they're struggling to set up all their equipment and get ready to play. And it takes longer than they expected because they were relaxing. And we did that every single show. We would never play more than 15 minutes. And we got to open for a bunch of bands. We opened for Fear, we opened for the Dickies, we opened for DOA, all the cool 80s bands that were on the reunion tours of the late 90s we got to open for. And I would always take my records and get them signed, and that was very awesome. Nate let us open for Dee Dee Ramone, and that was a huge thrill for me because Dee Dee Ramone is one of my many idols, and I got to meet him, and he autographed my bass, and it was the highlight of my life. And within 6 months he had died, so that was very lucky and very cool that I got to meet one of probably the heart and soul of punk rock is Dee Dee Ramone. He is the punk, and I got to meet him, and he got to sign my bass, so I was very excited about that. So I owe Nate a lot for allowing us to do that.
You were also in a band called the Wichitas, who even opened for Willie Nelson.
Yes. The Wichitas are, people call them country, but they're not really country. They're more like country they were older dudes. I was younger, but I've known them forever. The singer Olin, I have literally known since I was in the 7th grade because he used to date my sister. He was like a cool rocker dude. It was a country-ish band, but they played loud and they played fast, and their songs are awesome. They kind of sound like Rockpile. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Edmunds, Nick Lowe, Rockpile, kind of like a early 80s power pop. They're like power pop country, but they were really cool. They were a great band. Their bass player left, and I joined that band. And I played with them for 2.5 years, and they got to open up for a lot of legendary people. They opened for Johnny Cash. They opened for
Los Lobos. They opened for Buck Owens and Merle Haggard in 1995 at the fairgrounds. That's like the two biggest country Bakersfield names.
Unfortunately, that was before my time, but I did get to play with Willie Nelson, and it was really twice. We played with Willie Nelson twice.
Wow.
And one time, I believe it was at the Fox. We're opening for Willie Nelson, and we're playing, and the place is packed, and I look over to the side of the stage, and Willie Nelson is watching us leaning on an amp, and that was very intimidating and cool. So he actually stood there and watched us play, which I don't expect a lot of people to do. So they were great, but I left. It seems like I joined bands, their bass player leaves, so I join the band, and then I stick around for under 3 years, and then I leave. I think 2.5 years is my limit for every band. But it was fun. We played a lot of big shows, and occasionally we'll have reunions and we'll play, and it's fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
After the Wichitas and the Darvasets, then what are you doing with music?
Nothing. I think I aged out. The Darvasets, we played probably 40 shows. We did a couple of recordings. I didn't do anything with it. We played a bunch of great shows. We had a lot of fun. But one night, we just had a horrible show. We played at Jerry's. The amp I took to the show, I had this really cool vintage amp, and when I got to Jerry's and set it up, it didn't work. So I was panicking. I was like, Nate, we're about to go on. My amp doesn't work. And he said, oh, I have an amp. So he went to the back of Jerry's, like a closet or something, and he brought out this little teeny tiny, seriously, like an 8-inch speaker, like a little crate or a PV amp. He's like, you can use this. I'll put a mic on it. And I was like, oh, no. And then the drummer was like, I can't find my snare stand. So he used a folding chair for a snare, and it just looked pathetic. And I was like, this isn't fun anymore. And we just, at that night, we were just like, do you guys want to still do this? And everyone was like, nah, I think we're done. So the Darvasets broke up that night. Since then, I've played a few times with other bands, but nothing really interesting. I have not played for a long time, but I still crave it. I would love, I just think I'm too old. All the guys my age want to play country, and I don't want to play country. I want to play hardcore punk, and I can't find guys my age that want to play that. I'm 59 years old. There's no 59-year-old punk rockers. They've all died, or they've moved on with their lives. I can't move on. I still want to play. I would love to find just some guys to play punk rock, jam with. It doesn't even matter if we play out. I just want to play. I miss it so much. It's just, I don't know, the smell of a tube amp and the electrical shock you get from a guitar that's not grounded. I miss all that stuff. But there's nobody that wants to play anymore. If you're out there, find me and let's play in a band if you're old.
Do you still play, though, by yourself at home?
It's no fun to play by yourself. I have guitars and amps and stuff, and sometimes I'll play, but it's just not fun doing it by yourself, playing along with YouTube videos. It would take me a while to get my chops back, but no, I don't really play, but I want to. Consider this an ad, a personals ad, looking for old punk rock guys to play punk rock with. I'm your guy.
We should talk about what happened to Big Jed. What happened to Todd Thompson?
Yeah, Todd moved to San Francisco. He had the San Francisco Mutilators, and they were very popular and successful, and they played a lot of huge shows, and they were respected and all that. And they toured Europe, and they put out some records, and they were very well known. And we had not been speaking at this time because I was in a Cradle of Thorns, and I was doing my thing. I was touring the country and stuff, and it was like we were married and got divorced, and we just didn't want anything to do with each other, but we both secretly were still in love with each other. And then the Mutilators were playing Jerry's one night, and I said, I'm going to go down there and break the ice. And so I waited out in front of Jerry's, and when he pulled up, somehow he knew I was going to be there. He just came up, and we just hugged, and we started talking, and we just became best friends again that night. And
Wow.
From that point on, we were talking on the phone every day or emailing each other every day and just in constant contact. I would go to San Francisco and visit him, and he'd come to Bakersfield and visit. And so I think he was getting burned out of San Francisco and also his band because although they were popular and they were putting out music and stuff, there was a very popular Danish psychobilly band called the Necromantics that wanted them to go on tour in Europe. And apparently, I've never toured Europe, but it's awful to tour Europe because they treat Americans like shit, and you play clubs that are 600 years old, and they have no heat, and they have no air conditioning, and I don't know. It sounds glamorous to tour Europe, but I guess the reality is it's terrible. And he didn't want to do it, and he felt pressured. His band wanted to do it. The Necromantics, or whatever they were called, wanted him to do it, and he didn't want to. So he told me he was going to move back to Bakersfield. And I was like, no, why would you do that? And he's like, because I just need to come back home. And I tried to talk him out of it. I said, no, you're doing so good there. He had a very pretty girlfriend he was with. Like I said, he had a good job. He was working for Home Depot, and he was making a lot of money. Well, he's making good money for San Francisco. San Francisco is the most expensive place in the world. And if you can, maintain a place to stay and have a job and still, have money, then you're doing good. Anyway, he wanted to move back. I told him not to. And I feel guilty because I think he wanted to move back just to hang out with me. So he did move out. He did move back, and it was great. He got a place. He actually had enough money saved where he bought this house in Oildale. And he bought it for $25,000. And it was like a old crack house. But even the real estate agent was like, don't buy this house. Don't buy this house, because it was falling apart, and it was on Decatur Street, and it was a horrible street. And he bought it. He paid cash for this house because he said he never wanted to pay rent again. And so he fixed up this house, and I helped him, and he really restored it, and it was really looking nice. He did a lot of work to it. It was bad, the house. But he fixed it up because he had some knowledge, because he'd been working at Home Depot for 20 years. So he knew, kind of construction
Some
knowledge.
handyman experience.
Yeah, handyman. Yeah, exactly. Handyman knowledge. So he was fixing up this house, and it was actually turning out nice. He really turned it around. The thing we bonded most over is that we both were sufferers of chronic depression. And we always talked about our depression and our mental issues. And that's why we were so close, because we had a lot of the same problems. And we were both played each other's psychiatrists and therapists, trying to work out our shit. And we had talked about trying medication. And so I have good insurance through my work. So I tried to get on some antidepressants. They did absolutely nothing for me. I tried them for like 6 months. I still felt shitty all the time. So I stopped taking it. And I was like, that doesn't work for me. I went and saw a therapist. Talk therapy doesn't work for me. Medication doesn't work for me. So I was just like, it's just something I got to deal with. So it's fine. Todd, on the other hand, wanted to try medication, but he did not have insurance. So he went back to San Francisco and got some real shady kind of pay-as-you-go insurance plan, and he went and saw this doctor that overprescribed him medication. Like, he was taking a combination of like this and that and that, and you know, and it was making him kind of manic. Like, when I talked to him, I could tell he was medicated because he was like talking a mile a minute, like real hyper. And I was trying to tell him, hey, man, you need to cut back, or you need to see a real doctor, because this is not helping you. But he was like, no, I feel great. And long story short, he was having seizures. I found this later from his girlfriend that he had at the time. He was having seizures, and he didn't tell me about it. And this is what happened. One day I was getting ready for work, and there was a knock at my door at 6 a.m., and it was his girlfriend, who I did not like. She was very weird. And she was like, Todd died. And I was just like floored. I didn't know what she was talking about. And she explained that she had been trying to get a hold of him, and she couldn't reach him. So she went over to the house. He wasn't answering the door. So she peeked through his bathroom window. I guess she stood on something and peeked through the window, and she saw him dead in his bathroom on the floor. So apparently he had another seizure, and it killed him. And it's weird because he had just turned 50, and his dad died at 50. And he was telling me, I'm going to die at 50 because my dad died at 50. And I was like, you're stupid. You're not going to die. You're healthy as a horse. You're fine. And he died at 50. What sucks is I could not handle it. I flipped out. His house, where he had all of his stuff, his guitars, his amps, all his stuff that he had been collecting, the house that he took a lot of pride in, all his master tapes of all his recordings, all his memories, all his photos, was left at his house in Oildale. Word got around that the guy that lived in the blue house on Decatur Street died. So people kicked in the door and started stealing his stuff. One of my friends who worked at Front Porch at the time told me, hey, there's a guy coming in here trying to sell Todd's guitars. He's wearing Todd's clothes. He sent me a picture of it. I was like, I don't know what to do. You know, what do you want me to do? I can't do anything about this. If I would have had my wits about me, I would have gone over to the house. I would have boarded it up. I would have tried to contact Todd's family, who he was estranged from, and said, hey, you need to get over to Todd's and barricade this house, or put all this stuff in storage, or do something. But I just couldn't because I was so devastated by his death. I just shut down. So people started looting his house, took all of his stuff, all of his guitars, all this, I don't know where his tapes went. They probably ended up in the garbage or something. And this is the first time I've been able to talk about it since it happened. This happened probably in 2016 or 17, and I couldn't even talk about it. This is the first time I've ever not talked about it. What was I supposed to do? I didn't know what to do. I mean, so I lost my best friend in the world, and I didn't know what to do. What do you do? I didn't want to see his stuff. I didn't want to go over there and take his stuff. So that's the sad ending of Todd Thompson. Rory Todd Thompson. That's the sad death of Rory Todd Thompson. All I've got is memories and a few cassette tapes of his music. The end.
Well, I know both of you are very close, and thanks for sharing that, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy at all.
Looking back, what was your top show with Big Jed that's the most memorable?
I remember we played Chicago. I just remember there was a point when we were on stage. I don't know who we played with, just some local Chicago bands. I just remember there was a point when we were playing, and I guess the sound was just really good. The mix was really good. And I just remember in that moment just thinking, man, this sounds good. And I just remember being really proud. Like, just it sounded like a big wall of sound, and just everything was meshing, and it was just like, man, this sounds really, really good. That's a fond memory I have. But as far as like interesting, I don't know. I'm sure there is like a show that like stands out, but I'm blanking at the moment.
No worries. I mean, we talked about the San Francisco show. That's definitely one of the craziest ones.
Yeah, and getting beat up on stage with the Mutilators was cool.
Usually to finish off the show, we talk about what local bands that you're interested in that are current. But since you haven't been in the scene for a little bit, I'm going to ask you, what bands from the past from Bakersfield do you want people to check out?
Well, you already mentioned the Lizards. The Lizards are outstanding. From 1981, they put out a record. It's online. Both sides are great. One's straight up hardcore punk rock. The other side's kind of power poppy, and both songs are great, and it still holds up, and it's awesome. There's another band they never recorded, but they were pioneers of punk rock in Bakersfield. They were on par musically with the Germs or Middle Class or Black Flag. They were called Teen Suicide. They only recorded like fragments of songs, unfortunately, because the one time they recorded, they didn't know how to work the tape machine. So there's like a minute and a half of one song, and there's like 45 seconds of another song, but it is so awesome and brutal and hardcore. And they were called Teen Suicide, and they recorded this in 1980, and it's just mind-blowing. I'm sure it's available online. There's a live video of them playing at BC, which is terrible, but it is an interesting artifact because it's so chaotic and terrible. And for being in Bakersfield, playing that style of music and looking the way they did is just like mind-blowing. There's a shot of the audience where you can see people in the audience, and it's all Farrah Fawcett hairdos and cowboy hats, and these guys are just playing balls out punk rock. It's a treat. So hunt that down. Teen Suicide. Before we leave, I would just like to give a shout out to Ronald Ramirez of Going Underground Records for consistently keeping a awesome record store open for over 20 years and not letting the mafia in blue shutting him down. That is quite an achievement. So he needs credit. And also I would like to say the two guys that run Savage Radio, Jake Chavez and Greg Looney, are awesome. They have an independent radio station that's been consistently on for years now, and they have no commercials, and they play independent music, and they really need to be celebrated. So I just want to say, check them out, because they're awesome. Savage Radio, 103 point whatever. You can find it. Just find it. That's it. Everybody else, eat shit.
Well, it ain't had the right idea, but the wrong administration.